I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Kevin Stone. Kevin, how are you on this very busy day for us?
Aside from having to wake me up, I'm good. How are you?
Good. You had the hood on and everything. You were in full Yoda mode. I'm like, wake up, you must. But to your point, I can see why you're tired. It's a long day. Our show's been pushed back a little. We're not on this late usually, but because of the pro days in the area today, and of course tomorrow, the scouts in the area are going to be at UConn. We did have to push the show back because we were at Boston College today, and of course I was at Bryant after that this afternoon. So we did have to push the start time of the show back, but nonetheless, we are here. We got plenty to talk about tonight, as we do every week. We're going to recap the pro days. Not going to get into BC too much because Kevin and I did a video after that one earlier today. Talk a little bit about what I saw today at Bryant. UConn's pro days tomorrow. UMass pro day is on Wednesday. So we got that to talk about. We're going to recap our spring visits with Holy Cross and Stonehill. And we're going to look ahead to some other spring visits we have coming up as well. And we're going to wrap up with some high school talk. A couple more hires. Belmont Hill rather makes a hiring today. And Mike Pucko, Central Mass legend, is back in the head coaching game. He takes over at Fitchburg High School. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And there could be some trouble brewing at the high school ranks with recruiting. We're seeing more and more and hearing more and more about illegal recruiting or recruiting in general. Doesn't seem like it's just a public school problem anymore. It's now becoming a Catholic school problem and a private school problem. So Kevin and I will discuss that for a little bit as well. But we're going to start with the pro day, Stone. And as I mentioned, we were at Boston College where Jude Bowery, Lewis Bond, Q Hutchins led the way in terms of guys that worked out for the Eagles. We broke it down earlier, so we're not necessarily going to get into their performance. But what I did want to ask you is, and by the way, if you want to see our breakdown of how we thought they did, that should be up on all our social media. If it is not, we'll make sure it is up there after the show so you can check out both the show and Kevin and I's breakdown from earlier today. Strong Patriots presence. Of course, Mike Vrabel was there. Ryan Cowden was there. You know Boston College football better than anybody in this market, in my opinion. You're the preeminent Boston College beat writer in this market. Any chance, based on what we saw today, and again, I don't want to rehash their performances, we did that already, but based on what we saw today, the Patriot presence there, any chance any one of those top four guys of Bowery, Bond, Hutchins, or Taylor ends up with the Patriots?
I think Bond, Bowery, and Taylor I'll probably have actually, you know what? Yeah, I mean, all four, technically. Like, you can make a case that all four of those guys fit a need for the Patriots. You need offensive line depth. You need some help at receiver. Now, Bond isn't at one, so, that doesn't really solve that problem. But, we've talked a lot about Pop Douglas maybe not making it through this training camp. I think Louis Bond is a perfect replacement. Excuse me, for him. So a guy like that might be a fit. And then Q Hutchins, how much have we heard and talked about how much they need edge help? So, yeah, all four of those guys, you can make a case they could be drafted by the Patriots. But in general, I think Bowery has the best chance. He just, go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, what I was going to say is it's interesting because I think a year ago after BC Pro Day, we felt that Ozzie Trapillo could potentially be in play. We felt Drew Kendall could potentially be in play. We even thought Donovan Ezaraku was a possibility as well. They didn't draft any of those guys,
Yeah.
and no disrespect to the guys that worked out today, but those guys were probably a little bit higher end from
Oh,
a
yeah.
talent standpoint.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me, though, is I agree with you. I feel like either Bond or Bowery could be potential fits for them. When you look at these Boston College guys, I do think those are the guys that are most likely to get drafted, along with possibly Q Hutchins. They did spend a lot of time with Hutchins today. They also spent some time with Taylor and Bowery. But I think ultimately the guy that probably fits the best is probably Lewis Bond, just because when you look at him stylistically as a receiver and the things he can do, he can play from the slot, he can play the Z, he can play the F, he can do some different things, can even play a little bit of X for you in certain situations. When you look at him in his game, I think it really translates well to the Patriots offense and what they do. So I think when you look at those guys, I think that Lewis Bond is probably the best fit potentially for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, he can play all over the field, too. And how much have we talked about culture? that kid would fit in that locker room perfectly.
Oh yeah.
He's just quiet and keep to yourself as there is. He is not going to get out of line or too vocal or anything. So not just for us, but obviously having a local guy get drafted by the Patriots would be nice. But I genuinely think he could help. But overall, I do think Bowery out of that group has the best chance to be the first guy drafted.
Yeah, and I think he will be ultimately. Yeah, I think that when you look at that group, I think he's one of the three best prospects out of New England. I'm going to have my prospect list out later on this week of my top 25 prospects, NFL draft prospects for New England. And I think when you look at Jude Bowery, um, he is one of the three best. I think the list starts with Skylar Bell. I think he's the top prospect there. I gave it away, but I think Bowery slots in there in the top three, in my opinion. What did you think of his answer to my question today when I asked him if he potentially sees himself as a guard? I've been on record as saying I think he could end up being a starting guard in the NFL, but he's pretty steadfast that he's a tackle.
So I thought about this after we talked about it, and I think you specifically asked him if a team had approached him about it, right?
Yes.
So, and he said no. And the way he said no made it seem like, he would never do it. I don't think that's the case. I think it's one of those things where he just honestly answered the question that you asked him, saying, no, no one is, has presented that idea to me. But if you're a kid, you hear this all the time. You do whatever the coach asks you to do. If you're looking for a spot in the league, someone says, hey, would you kick inside? What's he going to say? No. Like, I
Right.
think you do it. Um, yeah, and you can speak to this better than I can. I think body wise, he just looks like a tackle, and people just kind of assume that's where he's going to stay. But I think ultimately, any way he can get in the league, he'll do whatever they ask him to do.
Look, I've talked to a lot of people that agree with me. That's the thing. Me saying I think he's a guard is my experience coming into play as a former offensive line coach, but also in conversations that I've had with people that have said to me that when they look at him, and it's not based on the fact that he struggled at the Senior Bowl. I think a lot of people are making a lot of that, and he struggled. He did not have a good week of practice, and he didn't play well in the game either. All that being said, though, this is a kid who 2 years ago was playing left tackle for Boston College, and when you're looking at him, you're thinking 6'5", 310, 315. With that athleticism and that footwork, this guy could potentially end up being a top, 60 pick. And all of a sudden now you look at him and we're having the conversation where we think he's a guard. When I watched him work out today, it reinforced my belief that ultimately I think the best position for him is either guard spot. I think he'd be a hell of a left guard because of his lateral quickness and the way he moves. Make no mistake about it, Jude Bowery's a good athlete. I just think that if he wants a lengthy NFL career and a team comes to him and says, hey, man, listen, we like you. We like your athleticism. We like your quickness. We just think it's a better fit inside. You've got to listen to that advice and do it. And I think ultimately he will. And I think you bring up an interesting point. My perception of the way he responded to my question, I almost perceived it as uh, confidence slash defiance, where he's saying, nope,
Yeah.
I see myself as a tackle. I believe I can do it. I'm going to prove to people I can do it. I didn't necessarily see it as him saying, I wouldn't play guard if I'm asked, but you can also see the way the answer came off. It came off in a way where he's saying, I don't see myself as a guard. I'm only a tackle.
No, that's the way he answered it. But I think ultimately, if he goes back and listens to that, excuse me, he'd be like, "Oh well, I kind of came off not how I wanted to." I think he more so meant he was just directly answering your question rather than "No, I won't do it."
It's interesting too because I look at a guy like Hugh Hutchins, right? And when you look at the production, it just wasn't there statistically. Then he has a really good Senior Bowl week. He really pops, gets a lot of people's attention, goes to the combine. There was a prevailing thought that he was going to knock it out of the park. He didn't necessarily do that. Again, I said we weren't really going to get into the weeds because we already did that in the separate video. But for me, when I think about him, and I do think he's a draftable guy, when I think about him, though, I don't particularly think he did anything to help himself today. I also don't think he hurt himself today. I think the thing with Q Hutchins is he's going to be slotted in with a lot of these edge guys that are in that 6'2", 6'3" range. That's what this draft class is littered with. And he's just going to be another one of those edge guys in that group. He's going to be an interesting prospect to me from the standpoint of, is he draftable? He's draftable on athletic ability. He's draftable on certain traits. He is not draftable beyond that. The production's not going to be there. He's not going to pop on tape per se. He doesn't make a lot of noticeable plays on tape. He's a guy that I think if you draft him, and talking to people today at both pro days when his name came up, if you draft him, you're drafting him with the mindset that you're going to develop him.
So he kind of fits in the same category for me as a Kevin Klein, who also worked out today, or a Sed McConnell, or just to go back a couple years, Jack Conley, Alec Lindstrom, guys that are going to find a way to stick in the league on practice squads. Like that's sort of where I think he's at. Can he, make a squad and then fit and find a role? Sure, you hear that story, hundreds of times throughout the year, but I feel like he's in that kind of group where he can hover around the league for 5 to 7 years, and you'll hear his name on a team here and there. But it's going to be tough for him to have a full impact kind of lengthy career, I think.
Well, I think the other thing to keep in mind is people forget that if you go back 10, 15 years and you look at his body type, that guy's an off-ball will linebacker. You're talking about a guy that's 6'2" and change, 225, 230 pounds. That's what he's playing. He's playing will linebacker in a 4-3. And that just speaks to how much the game has changed and how much it's evolved now, where that guy is expected to walk down, play on the line of scrimmage now. Now you're asking him to anchor down and hold up against the run and rush the passer and possibly drop into coverage depending on how much zone pressure you run. So I think that this draft in a lot of ways is going to tell us a lot about this so-called edge position and what it's going to be moving forward. In a lot of ways, it's going to redefine it. I know this much. Talking to certain people around the league, scouts in particular, as much as we want the Patriots to take an edge, and we all universally agree that's their number one need. I had been saying it throughout the season. I felt they were an edge short. As much as we want them to take an edge, I really believe, man, I would not be shocked if they threw us a curveball the night of round one and didn't take an edge if they stood pat at 31 and went in another direction. Because the more I keep talking to people, the more people keep telling me, I'm telling you, they have a type. And a lot of the guys in this draft class aren't that type. It's going to take a certain type of guy sitting there at 31 at that edge position for them to take one. I know we're starting to get into smoke screen season, but I'm telling you, I don't think it's a smoke screen. Talking to people today and the last couple of weeks, there's a prevailing thought that a lot of these twitchy, undersized edge guys don't fit what they want to do.
I could see him going to a lineman. I mean, he needed.
Depends how the board plays out. I could
Sure.
too.
I could also see him trading the pick. I'm starting to think that might be
I
where
said
they
it
go.
yesterday on Patriots Pulse. I could see them trading out of the first round. I know
Yeah.
that that's a cringy thought for Patriot fans, but I'm telling you right now, to your point, if they're sitting there at 31 and they don't like what's there and they think, you know what, if we move down 4 or 5 spots, even 10 spots, and add another pick, you know what, we'll do it. I can see them trading out.
Was that thumbs up just because you put your thumb up?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I know if people listen to this, they won't be able to see it, but that was mind boggling. No, I
Isn't
honestly,
it amazing what could throw Stone off his game?
that was pretty
See,
crazy.
this is the shit that I get it. I hear this from people all the time, and I'm not tooting our own horn right now. Do you know how many people tell me they think you and I have great chemistry together? And it's crazy. And
I'm not
that's
a
why
radio
we have
guy
great
either.
chemistry, because you're like, wait, is that a thumbs up?
I was not expecting that. Um, yeah, I completely lost my train of thought. So I honestly do think they're going to trade the pick. Like the more I think about it, and the more you hear that they don't love people, I heard the same stuff you did today. It's, why not go, sort of, what is it, 11 draft picks they have right now? Hell,
Yeah.
why not stockpile for next year? Like, move some of them, combine them. You can make a trade for a receiver, maybe. Who knows? Um, After today, it feels like that's sort of how it's going to go. But again, we're still a long way away.
We are, but and again, I think a lot of it is so it'll be interesting because if a guy like Zion Young from Missouri is sitting there, I could very easily see them taking him. he may also be the line of demarcation for them where they may say it's either him or a guy bigger than that. But if we're now looking at these 6'2" guys and there's 4 or 5 of them sitting there and we don't love them and we view them as situational pass rushers, well, if that's the case, they're not going to spend the 31st pick in the draft on a guy that at best ends up being a sub package situational pass rusher. I think they're going to ultimately either go in another direction. Remember now, if you go back to last year, start of the second round, they take Travion Henderson. None of us really thought running back was much of a need, but they went best player available and they went off the board. They went value. I can also see them doing that at 31, to your point about them possibly taking an offensive lineman. They might throw you an even bigger curveball. They could say, you know what? We're going to take a safety, the kid from Oregon, Dylan Thieneman. They could take him. Like
I was going to say tight end too.
If Kenyon, but see, the only thing with tight end, Kenyon Sadiq's the only first round tight end in this draft.
Yeah.
Unless he has like some kind of a free for all and he's sitting there, then you maybe you take him. Or dare I say, if he's sitting there and you're at the 28th pick, 29th pick, and he's still on the board, here we are talking about them trading down. Maybe they trade up and draft him. You don't know. But I think at the end of the day, as much as I still think edge is their number one need, I don't think, based on recent conversations, I don't feel that sense of conviction that I did 2 weeks ago where I thought, nope, they're definitively taking an edge. Remember now, they told us at the combine that they love that class. They also told us that they like the tight end class, which is interesting, and it leads me to believe that they could take one earlier than we think. But I find it interesting that they were putting that out there. Hey, we really like this group. But the more you talk to people, I don't think they're as enamored with it as they led us to believe at the combine.
No, and again, it's lying season too.
Yeah, you're
So
getting to that point.
yeah, 100%. So you never know.
Yeah. And W. Lemieux, of course, from Dartmouth College also worked out today. It was an interesting reaction there from people. A lot of people saying, oh, geez, he's not that big. Then when he came over to us, like, whoa, he's bigger than I thought. W. Lemieux played tackle in high school. He played tackle at Dartmouth. He's going to play guard or center in the NFL. I met with him. I'm going to get that interview up later on, but I met with him today. And one thing that intrigued me, or impressed me, I should say, with him, and intrigued me to a degree, is the fact that he recognized right away, I'm not a tackle. I might not even be a guard. He started working on shotgun snapping, identifying fronts, working out with guys over his head in zero text. Like he started doing all these things to prepare himself to play center. That's what a good football player does. Now, I don't know if W. Lemieux is going to get drafted. I still think he's probably a priority free agent. But I will say this, I thought he acquitted himself well today. And I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. And if he did get drafted late day 3, I wouldn't be shocked.
Not only that, but it's just as a Dartmouth Ivy League guy, I feel like GMs and coaching staffs are going to lean that way, maybe a little bit more than another kid who's out there in terms of a UDFA, just for the intelligence, in terms
Yeah.
of picking up a playbook or, sort of being able to assimilate very quickly. So I think that helps him too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course, after the Boston College Pro Day, we did meet with the media. I thought Bill O'Brien, well, we not with the media, the Bill O'Brien and the players who worked out met with the media. We didn't meet with ourselves. I thought Bill O'Brien had a lot of good things to say about the players, the program's relationship with the Patriots, his relationship with Mike Vrabel. Though there was a lot of good stuff there. Anything that came out of today's media availability that caught your attention?
Yeah, it's funny. The question I asked him, and I don't know if you remember this, I wanted to ask him this basically when Vrabel got hired last year. And for whatever reason, I just either never had a chance or it never came up. But logistically, if you think about it, having a Division One ACC school a half hour away should be beneficial for the Patriots. Like not just for, I guess, the buddy with Vrabel and O'Brien, but they can have institutional knowledge before anybody else in the draft process of guys at BC, particularly O linemen. Like that could be a pipeline. And I finally got around to asking Bill O'Brien today about it, and he said, "Yeah, look, we recruit guys that they're the type of player that Vrabel wants. So there should be a pipeline there. And now that I say this, assuming both guys are still going to be there for the next whatever 5, 10 years, that should be an open pipeline routinely every year. And again, I say mostly offensive linemen. Now, the rest of the country, you're not going to have secrets and everybody else is going to know what BC has. But when you have that relationship that close, I feel like it can be beneficial for both programs or the program and the team. So I'm hoping that does sort of open up a little bit more. Yeah, the Patriots have had BC guys in the past. They've had Ron Brace and stuff like that. But when you have the head coach of both programs that close, it should be mutually beneficial. So I thought his answer was interesting today.
Yeah, I agree. And it should be. And I think that to a certain extent, if the Boston College football program was on better footing, and I think that and I think that the talent level was a little bit higher end, I think it would be, and it could get back to that again.
Yeah.
We are living in a different world now than we used to when Boston College used to be O-line U, and they used to routinely get 2 or 3 guys drafted every year.
But they're at
That's
that
not the
point.
case anymore, but they're still producing some really good offensive linemen that
Yeah.
should intrigue the
Look,
Patriots.
I was going to say, I mean, you can go back right now. You got Zion Johnson, you got Mahogany. I mentioned Lindstrom and
Both
Conley
guys
earlier.
starting in the league.
Yeah, I mentioned Conley and Lindstrom earlier.
Trapillo started last year.
Right, they're not
Yeah.
starting. The other two guys aren't starting, but they're hanging around the league. You're gonna have Jude. You're gonna have Logan. Like that's becoming a thing again, which is why I sort of brought up the pipeline thing today.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good question, and I think it's a valid question. Where, to your point, you have a Division One ACC program 35 minutes away from your door. You should have institutional knowledge on them like no other, and there are
Yeah.
other teams around the league that have that advantage as well in terms of big time programs that are near their facility. But it's not just because they're close by; it's also the relationships between
Correct. That's the
O'Brien
bigger part.
and
Yeah.
Vrabel, right, and Marone. Now, I talked about that today. At one point, the 3 of them were talking. I tweeted out 3 former AFC South coaches who competed against each other, friends now talking. Um, it's one of those things where you bring up a good point, especially when it comes to line play. That's a school that's traditionally produced good offensive linemen. The Patriots should have some type of an inherent advantage there that they could certainly capitalize on. You are watching the New England Football Show. I was going to say presented by. We're still looking for a sponsor, so I caught myself. But you are watching the New England Football Show / listening to the New England Football Show. I'm John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Kevin Stone, talking pro days. We just talked about the Boston College Pro Day. After the Boston College Pro Day was over, I hopped in the old third car, the Toyota Corolla, the NEFJ Mobile, and I drove down. What did I get? I did Route 9 to 95 to 295, and I went over to Bryant University for the Rhode Island Pro Day. You had representatives there from about 15 NFL teams, and you had guys from Bryant and URI working out there, as well as Ty Pezza from Brown. Ty also worked out at Brown's Pro Day on Thursday. Now, what you need to know about that Pro Day is this was the largest scouting contingent I've seen there in 3 years. 3 years ago, they had 15 scouts there. Today, there was about that number there. A lot of that is tied to the fact that a lot of those people went down from Boston College and they're staying in the area tonight because they're going to UConn tomorrow and possibly UMass on Wednesday. Big thing you need to know about the Rhode Island Pro Day is 3 guys. The 3 best players there were AJ Pena, edge from URI. Unfortunately, because of a knee injury, AJ did not work out. This is the thumbs up again. And Michael Oddie, defensive tackle from Bryant, and Ty Pezza, wide receiver / tight end from Brown. Those are the 3 best prospects there. I thought some other guys acquitted themselves as well, but overall, it was a good showing from the scouting perspective. But again, those are the 3 guys that probably have the best shot at signing. Pena could potentially get drafted. He could be a late round guy, but realistically speaking, all 3 of those guys are undrafted free agents. But all 3 of those guys, and probably 4 or 5 other guys that were there today, deserve a shot to go to an NFL camp, at least a rookie mini camp anyway.
If nothing else, the 15 people that were there, it just goes to show that, they were willing to take the time for that talent down in Rhode Island. Like it's not ideal, but the talent is growing. It continues to grow every year. I did want to ask you about Pena, just how he looked. If you would ask me, who I think is going to have the best day down there, it's that kid by a mile.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, he didn't get to work out because of a knee
Okay.
injury. I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
get to interview him after, so we're going to have that up on all our social media tomorrow.
I completely missed you
Um,
said that.
yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing because I felt going into that pro day, he was going to be the best prospect there. He's a guy that's interesting in that he left in the portal, went to Memphis. About a month later, he came back. And I think a lot of people looked at that and said, well, wait a minute. You're good enough to play FBS college football. Why didn't you stay there? Did you want to come back and be the big fish in a small pond? But the reality is, you know AJ, and I've covered him for 4 years. He is a culture guy. He is a Rhode Island guy. He is a loyal, honest dude that believes in doing right by others. And he came back because he felt URI was a better fit for him. A lot of guys in this day and age, especially if they get some kind of a bag to go somewhere else, they're going to take the bag and go. And if they play, they play. They don't, they don't. He could have very easily done that. He said, screw that. I want to play. You know what? I'm a Rhode Island guy. I've got a year left. I want to enjoy my year left. I'm going to bet on me. I'm going to go back home, do my thing. He had another big season, and he had an opportunity to prove himself in front of scouts today. Like I said, unfortunately, he had a knee injury, but he's a guy that's an intriguing local prospect to watch because the versatility is endless with him. He's an edge. You can play him off the ball, on the ball. You can mug him. He can drop. He can go. He can pressure from depth. He can do a lot of things that are in vogue right now in the NFL. And he's a guy, Kevin, that I think when the dust settles, we'll go to an NFL training camp with somebody and he'll have an opportunity to make the team as a special team or a backup and a situational pass rusher.
It's funny, we talked about Bond being a great fit for the Patriots. Pena would be too. Can do a little bit of everything. And you know they love those
He
guys that can
can.
play.
It's the length piece, though.
Yeah,
That's going to be the biggest drawback for a lot of these guys. But with
but
them, that length piece it matters.
but in terms of the special teams factor, I think Vrabel would love that, especially having lost Jack Gibbons now too.
Yeah. Yeah, and inside linebacker is going to be a position of need from them. I still think he's more of an on ball edge guy,
Yeah.
but he has played off the ball in his career and he's been pretty good at it. Michael Oddie, another guy, when we talk about length, you put 2 inches on Michael Oddie, he could potentially be a late round guy or a priority free agent. He's going to get a contract. Talking to people at Bryant today, there are a lot of teams that have reached out to the program that have an interest in him, and I think that interest is genuine. We saw it a couple of years ago. Kenny Dyson, who played at Bryant, ended up on the Carolina Panthers practice squad. Bryant is a program, especially now that you got guys like Tom Kennedy in the league, who's made a nice career for himself with the Detroit Lions. Bryant is a program that is now known in NFL circles. And so you're going to start to see more and more Bryant guys get their chance. Again, if Michael Oddie is 6'2, 6'3, we're having a different conversation. You're talking about a guy who's 6 feet, 6'1. That does matter, unfortunately, but he could be that sub nickel dime pass rusher that kicks inside and then into that 2 eye and plays on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. He could potentially be that guy, play some special teams. Uh, if, like I said, if the height weren't an issue, we'd be having a different conversation. Ty Pez is interesting, the wide receiver from Brown. I unofficially timed him. He was at around a 4.7 for me. Um, when I look at him, and he told me tonight the teams have already told him that they see him as a move you, that second tight end in 12 personnel, or even 13 personnel as a third tight end. He's an interesting case study because you're talking about a guy that's 6'4, 6'4 and change. I was talking to his agent tonight, and he spent a lot of time today with the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, of course, if you remember, a few years ago, they drafted Andre Oshivas, big wide receiver from Princeton. The Bengals are known to have a connection to the Ivy League. And so the Bengals spent a lot of time with him. And talking to his agent tonight, he told me that the Bengals, as well as several other teams, have expressed an interest in him. So I think it's one of those things where he's another guy who was an ex receiver at Brown. But when you look at that body type, that 6'4, 6'4.5, he's a guy that could potentially move to the U and play second or the U tight end, play that second tight end, or even that third tight end potentially, and make the league as a special teamer slash third tight end and be productive. Again, I don't see I he's probably a late round guy, more realistically speaking, a UDFA. But another guy that I thought had a pretty good couple of workouts here between Thursday and today and really helped himself.
Those are the kind of stories that this time of year is all about. It's literally just about finding a way to get on the radar. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
how you get in the league.
yeah.
It's literally finding a way, and that is the prime example right there.
Yeah, a couple of other guys that I thought were pretty impressive today. A couple of cornerbacks from URI, Jordan Campbell, as well as a Yindy Johnson. I know that teams have talked to Johnson about potentially playing safety. I think physically profiles more as a safety. I thought that those guys did a pretty good job. I thought the running backs, Elijah Elliott from Bryant and Antoine Littleton from URI, both had pretty good days. Elijah Elliott is smooth. I think he's a guy that's going to be interesting because if he doesn't stick in the NFL, he's a guy that could potentially stick in the CFL. He's a guy that might be able to stick in the UFL. He's going to get an opportunity because, again, when you watch him run, and I've covered him the last couple of years, covered his games, he is a smooth one-cut runner who has a second gear when he steps his foot in the ground and accelerates. And he looked pretty smooth today catching the football as well. Connor Finer, Angel Sanchez, couple receivers from URI. Also, I also thought they did some nice things in the drills portion. Dante Lunan, former Bryant linebacker who had since transferred to Albany and Coastal Carolina. I thought he impressed as well. And getting back to Ty Pezza, another reason why I think he should be a tight end, I believe, and I have to double check, but I believe he benched 225 18 times. So, yeah, he had 18 reps of 225. So he vertical 32. Not bad. And he ran,
Not at
I
all.
had him at a 4.72, I think, for a 40. So 18 times at 225, that's a tight end, in my opinion. I think if he's willing to move to tight end and play tight end, he can certainly help himself. Now, of course, UConn has their pro day tomorrow. Headliners are going to be Skylar Bell, Joe Fignano. Our Andy Close is going to be there for that one. Should be a great pro day. They've got other guys as well, but those two guys, in my opinion, are two of the best players in New England. Bell is going to be the number one draft prospect in New England. Assuming he works out, the expectation is he's going to put on a show.
So I want to ask you this. I was thinking about this when we left BC. Those two guys are obviously, the marquee, if you will. If you're Jason Candle and you're a new coach, what do you do on that type of day in terms of promoting the guys? You know what I mean? Like that's sort of an awkward spot, no?
I don't think so. Why is it an awkward spot?
That's it. I don't like. How does that work? Like, I sort of can watch film on the guys, but he hasn't been around them. He doesn't know, what they are as locker room guys or anything like that. So is it more just
Well, I mean the
being there
league,
to encourage, or
right, but the league is aware of the coaching change, and I'm sure Jim Mora, who's a
true?
longtime NFL guy, the family's a longtime NFL family. I'm sure he's informed the teams about these guys, so
Yeah, that's
they're
fair.
probably going to go to Mora a lot more than they're going to go to Jason Candle. I know I couldn't help myself, but I don't think Candle's going to be the one that's speaking on their behalf.
Yeah,
Obviously, he
that's
will
true.
be moving forward, but when it comes to those guys, I'm sure that people around the league have talked to Jim Mora.
But in terms of Bell, I think we talked about this last week. That's another guy who would be awesome here, and could be
I think he'd be a terrific fit
a
as
pop
a Z.
replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a pop replacement. I'd love it. And again, not just for our purposes, but he generally could help this
Well, you're
offense.
talking about a guy that's 6 feet, about a buck 90. And conceptually speaking, he runs a full route tree. Any concept. He can operate out of the slot. You can use him as an F and move him around the formations. And I'm sorry, an F and a Z. You can use him as a Z, a true flanker, and motion him. You can do a lot of different things with him. And in certain situations, you can run him at the X. So I see a little bit. I see it. Believe it or not, I see a little bit of Romeo Dobbs in his game. He's a smaller version, but he's a really good route runner. He can finish in the red zone, and he's a guy that offers alignment versatility in that he can play the Z, the F, and even the X in certain personnel groupings and formation. So he's the number one draft prospect in this region for good reason. I think my draft round for him is the third round. I could see him going in the third round. If he doesn't, I think by the time you get middle to late fourth, he'll be gone by then. I don't see him lasting beyond that.
And Arfagnano, um, they need another quarterback.
He
There's
could
no reason.
go earlier than that too, by the way. I've talked to a couple people that said keep an eye on Skylar Bell late second. So it's a push. A lot of people seem to think the third round is going to be his sweet spot, but if he has a good day tomorrow, his draft stock's going to potentially get him to that point, middle to late second round. I don't see middle, but late second, early third is a possibility.
Well, Patriots have plenty of picks in that area, so that'd be nice. On fact, Nano, you just released Josh Dobbs today. You currently have one quarterback. You're going to bring a veteran
Well,
in.
they re-signed DeVito, and they're paying
True.
him backup money. So
No, it's what I was going to say. But you released Dobbs. Yes, you have two young quarterbacks, but would you bring him in if they had an opportunity? Just UDFA?
Fignano,
Yeah,
oh, 100%. I'm a
yeah,
big Joe Fignano guy. I think
and
Joe Fignano is the modern. I think Joe Fignano is the modern NFL quarterback.
and he can
I,
push both guys.
I think when you talk about the modern NFL quarterback, gone in the days of the 6'5", 6'6" guy, it's more about the 6'3", 6'4" guy. That's Joe Fignano. He plays from the pocket. He wins from the pocket. He's accurate. He takes care of the football. Only threw one interception last year. He's experienced. He's a multi-year starter, so there's plenty of film on him. I think Joe Fagnano could potentially find himself in a situation where he is a long-time backup in this league who could be a spot starter and win you some football games. I'm very high on Joe Fagnano. I've said this. I've been on record as saying this. I think Joe Fagnano is draftable. I think Joe Fagnano is a day 3 draft pick. If he doesn't get drafted, I think it's disappointing. I think he is worth drafting on day 3. Absolutely. And really, at any time from the 5th round on, I don't take him the first 4 rounds, but from the 5th round on, yeah, absolutely. Definitely 6th and 7th round. I take a chance on him in one of those 2 rounds.
Just from a Patriots perspective, it might be tough just having those three really young guys in the room. Like you got to think they want a true veteran in there, but I'd love to see those three guys, be that quarterback room this year.
Oh, DeVito can be that guy, and I get the veteran piece, but you've got to remember too, with the veteran guy, oftentimes you're bringing that guy in for mentorship reasons.
Yeah,
You don't need to mentor Drake May; he's played enough.
that's true.
So
Actually, yeah,
yeah, so I mean, I think look, if you wanted, they're going to probably bring in a couple of quarterbacks,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm. They've already met with Haynes King, and talking to a couple of people, I've been told they like him. So they've already met with him. He's on their list. Um, Joe Fagnano could very well have a conversation with him tomorrow. But the bottom line is, and they have another shot to get a look at him. I mean, you could invite him to your local pro day.
Yeah.
They invite him to their local pro day, which we should be getting that list at some point in the next week or so. Then I think we'll be able to see. We'll be able to see what they think of him.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. Again, not just for us, but generally, you threw one pick in a college football season. I don't
And that
care.
was at the end of the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't care what level it is. That's impressive.
Right. That's the thing. It'd be one thing if he threw it week 1. He threw it at the end of the regular season. So he really was impressive this year, and he should be on their radar. UMass's pro day is on Wednesday. A couple guys to keep an eye on there. Jake McConaughey, wide receiver, is a player to keep an eye on there. Their best prospect is Keenan Andrews, the punter. I think he's their best Keegan Andrews. I'm sorry. Keegan Andrews, their punter. I think he is their best prospect. I know people are going to say a punter's your best prospect.
Nothing
Yes, I
said.
do.
That
And
says
he's a legit punter. He's not going to
This,
get drafted, but he'll end up in camp with somebody.
no
Uh,
disrespect to the kid, but that just screams UMass right now.
yeah, in terms of where they are. Luke
Yeah,
Payton, an offensive lineman, as well as Ryan Macesso, are also 2 guys to keep an eye on, as well as Zook Agwenagu. He's another guy, defensive lineman, to keep an eye on. But again, McConaughey, Andrews, probably Payton, those are their 3 best prospects. I would expect 4 or 5 scouts there on Wednesday. We don't have anybody. We're trying to get somebody out there for Wednesday. Hey, people that know us know that we try to be at everything. Unfortunately, UMass is really hard for us, and right now we've been striking out in terms of having someone over there for tomorrow for the first day of spring practice and Wednesday. Our hope is the very least we can get someone over there for Wednesday. We're trying, folks, but us being out here and relying on folks that are out there makes it a little challenging when it comes to UMass. But nonetheless, we'll have our spring preview up tomorrow morning, and we'll have full coverage of day 1 tomorrow and what Coach Harris Simiak had to say. We'll have coverage of the spring game. and we'll also do a spring visit with the Minutemen. So we'll have plenty of UMass coverage for you in the coming weeks. URI also kicks off spring ball this Saturday, which I'm going to use that as a segue real quick. You and I did a couple of spring visits this week. You went to Holy Cross on Thursday. I went to Stonehill on Saturday. What were your impressions of what you saw from the Crusaders on Thursday in year 3 now under Dan Curran, going into year 3?
Yeah, we didn't even mention their pro day. I might as well hit that real quick. Um, the Holy Cross kids, it was only 8 guys total, excuse me, 9, from multiple schools. Merrimack was well represented. Gary Roseman, I thought, had a really good day. Jake Jarmowicz, and I hope I didn't mess that up, former DB who went out to Colorado State for a year. He had a really, really good day. He just sort of looks the part. He's really athletic. And then Monty Quinn, the kid from Curry, who obviously made national headlines last year with a 522-yard performance. What a great kid to talk to. I had a chance to meet him afterwards, and he's a very talented guy too. Quick, can catch the ball. Only three scouts in attendance that day: Patriots, Chiefs, and your Packers. So they all got up close and personal with those guys. But solid day for that pro day. And then in terms of the spring visit, look, David Lynch from Bishop Hendricken, he transferred in from Pitt, obviously. He's going to push Cal Swanson, but I'll tell you, Cal Swanson looks like a different quarterback than he did from the last time I saw him against Harvard last year. That quarterback competition, really, it's 4 guys. And it's legitimately, we can joke around and say BC. I don't really think it is, but I think we already know who their starting quarterback is going to be. In fact, he threw today at the NFL Pro Day. But I genuinely think they have a 4-man competition that's going to run through the fall. Their receiver group is huge. It's quick. Running backs are deep again. I feel like I say it every year with Holy Cross, but it's the truth. And then, as you know, they're always big up front on both sides, and they are again. And then a typical Dan Curran offense, he loves his tight ends. They have plenty of them, and they have a ton of size as well. So, look, if you watch that team last year at all, they were not 3-9. They lost a ton.
It should have been better. And
Yeah.
and you got the impression early on in the year that they would have been better.
Yeah, they lost a ton of close games. Now, it's not an excuse, but offense was the problem last year. From the hour and 20 minutes I spent watching them, and it was a lighter practice. They had gone hard a couple of days before, but they are going to be right back in the thick of that Patriot League playoff race. And we've talked about it. That league is now even harder than it already was. And that was one of the more difficult leagues in the FCS kind of level. So, but offense should not be a problem for them. I do think they're going to be competitive again this year.
And what was the sense that you got from Coach Curran? One of the things we know about Dan Curran is he is supremely positive.
Always.
That's the vibe I got from watching your interview with him after Thursday's practice.
So it's not just positive; he's just always confident. Like, he's confident in the staff around him, confident in the kids he brought in. That's half the battle, right? Like,
and he's got a good staff.
Yeah, and again, you've coached. If you don't have trust in the guys you put around you, it's a shit show from the start. Like, you can tell that stuff in spring ball. We've talked about it. We saw, again, I'll go back to compare it to BC. That staff is fully confident in what everybody's doing at all times. And I think Holy Cross is always the same way.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had an opportunity on Saturday to visit with Stonehill to do our spring visit, and really impressed with what I saw out of Eli Gardner's squad. First of all, one of the things that you notice is they're a bigger team now. I mean, they with the work that they've done in the portal and the guys that they've brought in, they're a bigger, more physically imposing team. You saw that. They get Jack O'Connell back at quarterback, which I think is huge for them. They've got a running back room that they really like. Shane Eason, former Methuen standout, is a guy who figures to be a big part of that running back room. Coach Gardner told me that they're about 9 to 11 deep at wide receiver, and they have a lot of guys there, headlined by Elijah Turner, that they really like, that they think could step in and play for them. They're going to be a little young on defense. Their front 7, they have a lot of guys up front that they're going to play and rotate. They're going to be young at linebacker. They do return Mekhi Watson and Tyler Bannon, among others, and those guys are 2 good football players that are good foundational pieces to the position. Their secondary is going to be one of the better secondaries in the region. I mean, you're returning Mo Seed, you're returning Jordan Irvine. They've got some legitimate talent back there. But Stonehill went 4-8 last year. But you talk about Holy Cross not looking like a 3-9 football team. You could say the same thing about this Stonehill football team. They were in a lot of games last year. Could have very easily beat Lafayette. Could have very easily beat Penn. This is a team that's probably, 2 or 3 points away from being 7-5 last year, or 8-3, or however you want to look at it. So I think it's one of those games, one of those things where they brought in 9 transfers this winter. They had a really good winter. They're going to be playing their first 2 FBS opponents next year. They're playing at UMass, at Ohio. Gardner recognizes, and he and I talked about this after practice. He recognizes we got to get bigger, we got to get faster, because as we go along here, and they've got a bunch of MAC opponents lined up for the coming years, you're going to be playing more FBS programs. This is not little old Stonehill College, the little old Division II school in Easton. They're playing. They're going to start playing bigger programs now. And for what it's worth, the Stonehill administration is making a real commitment to improving facilities there. They're going to have a brand new hockey and basketball arena on campus here in the coming years. They're talking about adding more to the football stadium. So there's a lot of good things coming there. But the vibes are good right now at Stonehill College when it comes to football.
To piggyback off the point about last year, I believe that CCSU game, if they had won, they would have been either tied or close to tied
Yeah,
going into the last week of the
yeah,
year
they
for the
were in it.
NEC title.
Yeah.
And if people forget that first season, I think they went 5-4 or like 5-5. They made that jump immediately and had a really good year. Had a couple down years, but again, it goes back to sort of building it in your vision. This is fully Eli Gardner's sort of all-encompass vision now. So I would not be surprised to see them make a jump and compete in the NEC this year.
I wouldn't either. And again, I think when you look at the NEC, and I think the big thing for Stonehill is they got to come out of that UMass game healthy. They got to come out of that Ohio game healthy. If they do, they should be in the mix in the NEC, because when you look at the NEC, CCSU has been really good the last few years under Adam Lechtenberg, but they graduate everybody. They'll have guys working out in front of scouts tomorrow at that UConn Pro Day. They graduate a lot of those guys, though. So when you lose a Brady Olson, when you lose an Elijah Howard, that's a lot. So the door is definitely going to be open there for Stonehill to make a move next year. And when you look at what they have coming back, and again, they should be pretty good up front on both sides of the ball, a little on the young side. But when you look at what they have coming back, they should be in the mix. I mean, like I said, this is a much different football program than the one we saw, of course, when they made this move up 3 years ago. And by the way, they're also eligible now for the FCS playoffs. So that's the other thing. So a lot of goals in front of them there, certainly at Stonehill. I'm going to switch gears here real quick before we wrap up. Talk a little bit of high school football. Fitchburg High School makes a big hire this weekend, hiring Central Mass coaching legend Mike Pucko to take over. Great name, of course. Coach Pucko is known for also coaching college football out in Central Mass. He was on Bob Chesney's staff. This is a great hire for a Fitchburg program that needs it. I don't think people remember how good Fitchburg football was under Ray Cosenza for a long time. I mean, they were a power program in Central Mass. They were a heavyweight. They would play Brockton. They would play Leominster. They would play some St. John Shrewsbury. They'd play some really good schools. The program has fallen on a lot of hard times. It's great to see that somebody like Coach Pucko, who made his name at Holy Name, to see him back at the high school ranks with the experience that he has. He's a guy that's been around. He's going to run an offense and a defense that fits the talent, and he's a guy that's reputable. And if those kids buy in, Fitchburg football is going to make a comeback here. Programs like this need coaches like Mike Pucko. This is a terrific hire for Fitchburg football.
So as you know, I worked in Central Massachusetts for the first decade of my career. I don't think I ever covered Fitchburg for the reasons you said earlier. People just they didn't care about the program. So Central Mass needs all the good teams they can get. When the majority of Central Mass is competitive, like Uxbridge, sort of coming up and becoming what they've become, and even a Westboro type of school when they're good, like just more people. The more people that care in Central Mass, the better. I feel like because Central Mass often gets forgotten or just sort of pushed to the side compared to Eastern Mass schools. So Yeah, it's a hell of a hire, and hopefully he can bring Fitchburg back.
Yeah, and I think again, when we talk about programs like Fitchburg that once upon a time were great programs that had yearly success, look, it's hard, right? Like when you talk about a lot of oftentimes, unfortunately, especially with these bigger schools, the city schools, when it starts going the other way, it's hard to get it back. And I think Fitchburg for a long time was a big school. They're not that size anymore, but it's a diverse school. It's a school that kids have a lot of responsibilities on their plate. They can't just go to school and play sports and go home. They have other responsibilities outside of football. Coach Pucko is going to get that. He's going to understand that. And I think at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to is you need that stability. You need a coach who's going to be there and be there for a while and has been there and done it before. And he has. And I think he's going to bring that to Fitchburg High School. So terrific hire there. And of course, we said this last week. I mean, we can't keep up with all the openings. It's crazy with the amount of openings that are out there. I every week I find out about another opening that we missed, and we have our finger on everything. We talk to people. We're out there, and yet every week I keep hearing of another opening or another hiring. It's crazy, man. And a big reason for it is the landscape of high school football has changed. One of the things, I don't know if people are out there in this area anyway, following this, but of course, there's a lot going on right now in New York and Nevada in regards to public schools playing private schools. A lot of schools are refusing to play the upper echelon Catholic or private schools in those states. Specifically in Nevada, schools are refusing to now play Bishop Gorman that had scheduled games against them. The other thing you're starting to see is all the stuff we're seeing in college with NIL and the movement. You're starting to see it in high school now. There's a lot of vitriol out there right now, Kevin, amongst coaches. But it's always existed with public school coaches towards Catholic school coaches. But now all of a sudden, you have private schools rating Catholic schools. You have Catholic schools rating Catholic schools. It truly is the Wild West right now. We're starting to see it up here. There's been some stuff that's been put out there in recent days by certain Catholic schools trying to call out other Catholic schools who are taking their players. But man, it is a crazy world we're living in right now when it comes to high school recruiting, specifically high schools recruiting other high schools players.
You know my thoughts on the entire recruiting scene, so I won't go into my whole spiel at almost 10 o'clock. But this was bound to happen, and it's only going to get worse. Like, even if coaches are calling out other coaches, and if it's hell, if a player calls out a coach, whatever it might be, if there's no real consequence, well, then what are they going to do about it? Like, yeah, you're publicly shamed, and maybe people talk crap about you online, but if you end up getting a kid that can help you win a championship, which in turn helps you get more kids and more championships, well, what the hell are we going to do? So it's
Right.
a vicious cycle until there's laws, or for lack of a better term, until there's less lawlessness in the entire thing. So from college to high school, it's trickling down, and it's only going to get uglier, I think.
It is. And it's interesting because I get a lot of people now that'll say to me, well, wait a minute. CM's been the dominant program in Massachusetts for the last few years in terms of winning championships, and they're losing kids now. Yeah, yeah, they are. That's that. Whether you agree with it or not, it's been going on for a long time, public school to Catholic school, and now we're starting to see Catholic rosters getting rated. And as I mentioned earlier, they're not just getting rated by private schools; they're getting rated by other Catholic schools. But this is the reality of it. People are selling kids a bill of goods. Kids are buying it, and they're moving. And excuse me, to your point, I don't see it changing. I think that this is a fact of life now. I think you're going to see this more and more often where kids are going to play somewhere for a year or two, then they're going to get up and leave. They're going to go somewhere else because it's all about ultimately getting to where you want to go. And if someone in that program can promise you that they are going to get you where you want to go, they're going to promise you the world and you're going to go. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say you can't blame the kids because they're getting bad advice, okay? Whether it be from parents or now we're starting to see agents infiltrate the high school game. A lot of these higher profile, highly recruited kids have agencies that are working with them. All the shit that we're seeing in college has trickled down to high school now. But the reality is, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's just not. You're going to see more public schools being raided, and now you're going to see more Catholic schools being raided. And what's going to happen is private schools are going to raid private schools, and what's going to ultimately happen is the advent of 8-man football. It's coming, man. I'm talking to a lot of people that are telling me you have no idea how bad it is numbers wise in Massachusetts. We are trending in a direction where we're going to be playing 8-man football in a lot of places in Massachusetts in the next 5 to 10 years. It's coming. And it's not
So,
just going to be public schools. It's going to be small Catholics, it's going to be small privates. You're going to have a lot of schools playing 8-man football.
that's the first I've
Why
ever
did you
heard of
make
that.
that face?
Because I honestly hadn't heard of it. So you're telling me
I
real
thought you were
football?
reacting to when I said small privates. That's all.
I completely missed that. I would have like on it. Um, so legitimate regular football, basically 7-on-7 with an extra player, but real
Right.
football.
It's real football, but it's not real football because you're forced to play it. I mean, they play 8-man football in Maine, and it's big in certain parts of the country, but it's also big in parts of the country. Let's call it for what it is. It's big in parts of the country that are desolate, that where you have
Yeah,
these county
right.
schools that have small numbers.
Yeah,
So
they have
it's not
tumbleweeds
something
on the
that should
field.
ever be happening here.
No, yeah, you run an out route and you get a tumbleweed going by. Like that's
Right.
that's where you're seeing it.
Right.
But so that's wild to me. I had honestly had never heard that. Um, you might as well have them play flag football then. Like at that point,
Don't give
which
them any ideas.
no, I
Because
know.
I'm telling you right now, there's a push to play flag football on the girls' side, and there's a
Sure.
strong push, and a lot of schools are playing it already. But now you're starting to talk to people that are saying, well, there's a push on the boys' side too. If we go
Well,
down that road, football's in big trouble in states like Massachusetts.
well, especially if kids saw what they saw this past weekend with the flag football team absolutely murdering the NFL teams, just humiliating them. So that is crazy. But to back to the original point, this
Well,
is only
first of
going to get
all, I didn't watch that thing, but who was on this mythical flag football team?
apparently professional flag football players that represent Team USA. It was embarrassing. And obviously, it's a different game. You know that completely different game in terms of how
Well,
some
let's
of the
be
rules
honest
and
here. These NFL guys should not be losing to these
100%,
schiffoes.
100%. That's why it was so
I
bad.
don't care how many years these guys have been playing flag football.
Agree.
The NFL guys shouldn't be losing to these guys.
No, but I think you're going to start to see more and more kids play flag after something like that if they don't want the contact. Which, as a coach, you've dealt with that now for
It's not
years.
football at that point. Call it something
Correct.
else.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Right.
I'm going to be a hardo about it. Call it something else. It's not football at that point.
Yeah. But back to the original point, this is going to get worse for two reasons, and you mentioned both of them. But one, if these teams are getting kids that can win championships, kids want to play for winners because winners get scouts at their games. So it's a vicious cycle that's going to continue unless these teams start losing. If a kid just to pull a team out of thin air, if Tabor somehow keeps getting these marquee names, but they start losing, well, maybe the marquee names start looking elsewhere. That's not going to happen. Tabor's going to continue to win. They're going to continue to get kids that want to go play for a winner because they're getting the attention. Until there's
Well,
actually,
they want to go to Tabor because Jeff Moore gets them recruited.
but you know what I mean in terms of
Right.
the success breeds kids wanting to continue going there.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. So there's no end in sight. I don't think.
No, unfortunately, it's gonna result in a lot of animosity, a lot of bad blood amongst coaches. You have a lot of coaches. You're already seeing it. There's a lot of backstabbing, a lot of back behind the scenes back talking and stuff like that. It's not going to get better. It's not. And unfortunately, we're not living in a time. We're living in a time where people are more than willing to do what they think is best for them. There's no concept of loyalty, and I get it. I understand it, but at the same time, we got to be realistic here. You know, it look, if you're a Division One caliber kid and you want to go play at a certain school, go ahead and do it. I mean, who am I to tell you not to? But at the same time, don't bounce around from 2 or 3 schools until you get there. Figure it out before that. And that's where I think a kid's support system comes into play and why they're vitally important. And if the kid doesn't have the right people around him, people that have their best interests in mind, that are going to do what's best for them or give them the best possible advice, well, it's not going to matter. And by the way, as you well know, this isn't just a football problem. This is an across the board problem in
Oh
sports.
God, yeah.
You're seeing it in hoops. You're seeing it in baseball. You're seeing it in lacrosse. It's an across the board problem. It's not just a football problem. And I think that
So
that's important to point out. But we're starting to see a lot of these elements that we've been seeing the last couple of years in FBS and FCS college football. We're starting to see some of that stuff happening now at the high school game. And like I said, I think it's sad. I think it's sad because I think what it goes to show you is that there's a lot of people that are in this business right now that are not in it for the right reasons. And the ultimate loser in all this is the kids. So, all right, Stone, final thoughts here before we wrap it up.
yeah, just one thing real quick. I mentioned Mason McKenzie throwing earlier today at Pro Day, and Grayson Wilson, the other transfer quarterback from Arkansas, threw today, and it sort of hit me as I was coming home today.
You
That's
had a
why
lot of epiphanies today,
I
huh?
really did. I was sitting in freaking Route 9 traffic. Um, and then you were in it too. That's why kids are still committing to Bill O'Brien. It's an opportunity like that. You know, that kid was playing at Saginaw Valley State a few months ago, and Grayson Wilson was in Arkansas on the bottom of the depth chart. They're throwing in front of 29 NFL teams today. That's the kind of opportunity Bill O'Brien and an NFL staff can still provide. And it just sort of hit me today that, yeah, you can go 2-10, but again, keeping Bill O'Brien was the smartest thing BC could have done because of days like today where kids have that opportunity. And now, you know, when we're watching practice tomorrow morning, I can almost guarantee those two guys are going to have more zip on their ball because of the day they just had under Bill O'Brien. That's all.
Well,
It's
I
just,
think to your point,
yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, again, when you look at that 2-10 season, it's very easily to be down. It's very easy to be down on Boston College and Bill O'Brien right now.
Yep.
But I think you'd be foolish to do that because I don't think that that's not indicative of who Bill O'Brien is and what he can do in terms of developing quarterbacks and running a pro style offense that can help quarterbacks get to the NFL. And I think people need to stop losing sight of that. Mason McKenzie can play. Who cares how big he is and where he's
He was
coming
great
from?
today.
Oh yeah, he's big enough where when you watch him today, he did a really good job of layering the football and throwing guys open. And again, whatever, it's a pro day. He's throwing
But that's
on
pressure on
air,
them, too.
but right, right, he's throwing on air. But my point is, it's one of those things where he's going to be a much better player than people think in this system. And then for all those people that doubted Bill O'Brien and whether or not he could get this program back on track, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised this season.
Yeah, and then again, that's a pressure spot for those guys. Like Lewis Bond, that's a job interview for him. Like Jeremiah Franklin, that's a job interview for him. And some of the other kids that were catching balls, if they have a bad day, those kids have a bad day, you just cost them their draft stock. So that's a tough spot for those guys. It's good to see they got that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was a good day there. I thought overall,
Good day for
as
the
we said to
program.
start the show, it was a pretty good day at Boston College today. I think that all those guys that played in the program acquitted themselves well. And as Coach O'Brien said, you know what? They're all good guys, team guys that are going to buy in and do what you ask. And at the end of the day, that's the starting point. If they're willing to do that, then comes the football piece and whether or not they can play in the league. But if they could fit into a locker room culturally, that's ultimately the starting point. And in many ways, it's a big part of the process. And I think a lot of those guys, and we can say this about a lot of Boston College guys we've covered through the years, a lot of guys will fit into a locker room because one thing we can say about Boston colleges, they produce high-end people. Not only do they produce talented football players through the years, but they produce high-end people, and that's all that counts. All right, well, Stone, great job today, man. Great job at Boston College. Great job getting up a bunch of content for us. Really appreciate that as always. And the beat goes on, man. I mean, we still got a couple more days of pro days, spring practices, plenty on tap here for our football fans in the region over the course of the next month.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be at Harvard on Saturday morning, BC after that. And then, as you know, it's also lacrosse season, but 24/7 for us.
Oh yeah, I'll be at UConn on Saturday, and we'll be doing our camp visit with them. We'll also be at their spring game on April 11th. We've got some camp visits coming up as well with all the other D1 programs in the area as well. Do want to use this opportunity to let people out there know that we are launching a sister site, and we've been kind of keeping it under wraps because we're trying to slow release it. We know that we don't just want to come out guns a blazing and release it right away. It's really, we're hoping to really have this website up and running for 2027, but we're slow releasing it this spring, and that's Boston Baseball Journal. It will be the sister site to New England Football Journal. Of course, we know there's a New England Baseball Journal out there. We're not affiliated with them, but they do great work. I know John McGuirk. He works with them. They do terrific work. We're going to be a little different though. Our focus is the Red Sox, MIAA, NEPSAC baseball, and we're going to focus on Division One college baseball. So from a format standpoint, it's going to be very similar to New England Football Journal. We'll also focus a little bit more on D2 and 3 college baseball. We don't really, unfortunately, focus as much on D2 and 3 college football. As I mentioned, we're going to slow release it this spring. We're not going to be at a lot of things, but we're going to be putting content out. But our goal is a year from now, if everything goes according to plan, a year from now, the goal is to be at 2, 3, 4, 5 high school baseball games a week, a couple college games a week, and really start to give baseball at those levels the attention they deserve. And I want to be clear when I say this, because I don't want people to think that I'm dismissing the work of others. There's a lot of great people out there covering high school baseball. We know that, as well as college baseball. I mentioned New England Baseball Journal. I'm not, one of those people that isn't going to recognize good work when I see it. But the folks over there do great work. But we feel that there's another space there that we can cover the great game of baseball. And people have asked me, they said, John, why don't you do basketball? Why don't you do hockey? For me, this is a passion project. Baseball is my second favorite sport. I love baseball. I've been to all 30 major league ballparks. I'm a certified umpire. I love, my daughter plays softball. Baseball is a big part of my family. And so for me, this has always been a passion project that I wanted to do. And there's probably not too many markets out there that are better for something like this than Boston. And what kind of put me over the top was something that Kevin said to me about baseball in this market. You want to tell our viewers what you said to me and our listeners what you said to me about baseball in this market?
I might actually remember this one. Um,
If you don't remember it, I'm just going to hit end stream at this point.
um, look, you said everyone's a baseball person around here. You grew up with the Sox in your blood. There's generally a year-round sort of. It's not the same. Like the hot stove isn't what it used to be by any means, and truck day isn't what it used to be by any means. But opening days this week, you're gonna know about it. You
Oh,
you
yeah.
grew up a Sox fan around here. You're gonna care about baseball no matter what. Even if the Sox piss you off, like they piss all of us off, that's part of the experience of being a Boston baseball fan. So um, when you brought this up to me, my immediate thought was, honestly, it might be easier to cover baseball year round than football, frankly, just because of the nature of where we grow up. So um, I want to say it dragged me into it, but it didn't take very much sort of convincing. I genuinely think we can do this. And obviously, it's going to take support from a lot of people. But I feel like between what I've done over the years, writing and relationships I've built, I've covered way more American Legion baseball than I'd like to admit over the years, and just sort of college and high school. And I'm proud of the relationships that I have. I know you know a lot of baseball people around here as well, and they've all been supportive when we told them the idea. So what the hell? Let's see what we can do out of this.
And I do want to tell people, I've had people ask me this. What does this mean for NEFJ? Nothing. It's our number one site. It's always going to be our number one site. Our goal is for both sites to be, they're going to get our equal attention, but we're not skipping a beat with NEFJ. You're going to get the same coverage you've been getting for the last 5, 6 years. So it's not going to mean anything for us on the football side. Football is the base of our operation. It's what people know us for. It's what they're going to continue to know us for. But we hope we could build this down the road to where it could be on similar footing, and we're providing some good quality baseball coverage in a market which has really good quality baseball coverage. One of the things I will not do, and Stone knows this about me, and I'm sure sometimes it pisses him off, but one of the things I will not do is throw stones at people that are covering uh, football or baseball in this market. I'm not going to do it because I think we have a lot of people that do good work here. And I don't always see eye to eye with them. And I don't necessarily always agree what the content that they may produce, and vice versa. They probably feel the same way about us. But I think at the end of the day, there's a level of respect that goes into being a member of this industry. And again, as I said earlier, I'm not saying that people aren't covering baseball, but talking to people the last couple of years, there's a lot of people that believe that there could be more. And we're hoping to fill some of that void, and we'll give it a shot. There's no guarantee this is going to work. Either way you look at it, NEFJ is going to be around, whether this works out or not. Our hope is it does work out. We're going to put our best foot forward. But again, we're soft launching it this spring with a goal being that we can be in a similar place that we are with NEFJ a year from now. And the long-term plan is, yes, to package this as part of our subscription. We'll talk about that down the road. But we just wanted to use this platform to introduce it. We're also going to launch it on opening day for the Red Sox. I'm going to introduce it on our social media. And if you could give us a follow, that would be great. So, all right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the New England Football Show. For Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Until then, have a happy and healthy and safe week. Peace.
See ya.